Hello, this is Patrick Tibiao, and welcome back. Today, we're going to discuss the power amplification in my audiophile system. I'm going to talk about the preamp and the power amp that I picked for my system, but in general, what's available and why I chose what I chose. So, amplification, the first thing that comes to mind is, do you want solid state or do you want tube amplifications? Those are two worlds that compete with each other, one trying to outdo the other. But in general, I'll just leave it as a simple explanation. Tubes are warmer in the analog world, and the electronics, when done right, can be awfully fooling as well. So it's all about fooling you as you're hearing the music. And how close does that get to the real sound of the musicians? The tubes have been traditionally what we started listening to music with, and television and all electronics, and that quickly was replaced by the electronics, which is solid state, that is. And the earlier versions of solid state were not as developed, so the music wasn't that great. It was colder. It was not as warm as tubes, so tubes won the battle most of the time. But lately, it's a hard line to distinguish. As we discussed earlier with the DCS Apex unit, I was completely fooled by how natural and realistic the sound came through. So I have an open mind, but my ears are my ears, and that's what counts. Yours should tell you what to do, nobody else. I have auditioned every component here, so I didn't buy anything without trying it and listening first. So, in my case, I chose tubes, of course. Now, within tubes, there's a couple of categories. The traditional tubes, as we all know, they get warm and they pop sometimes, and you have to replace them. What's with that, right? Well, if they're done well, they don't do that a lot. And if you take care of them, they don't do that a lot, to be honest. But there's also an old way of using the tubes in amplification, and that's called the OTL. OTL is output transformer less. Whenever there's an amplifier that generates the volume of sound, there's then always a transformer at the end that takes that energy and delivers it to the speakers. That transformer is known to be a kind of like a sonic cap. It puts its own signature on the sound. And that's notorious. Every transformer does that. There are some designs that are done and executed without a transformer. It's called an output transformer, which is why it's called OTL, output transformer less. But they're very inefficient. The tubes run hot, and you need twice as many tubes to achieve the same power as a regular non-OTL. So the transformer did a lot of great things to save the tubes and all that and extend their life, and it's a very convenient package. It doesn't get as hot, but these, you can literally fry an egg on a tube on one evening. I haven't tried it yet, but I burned a finger or two playing with them. So let's begin with how does music get amplified? You need two components. The preamp, which reads the signal and then sends it to the power amps. So in my system, I chose both preamps and amplifiers of the same company and the same type of technology of OTL. It's the Joule-Electra system. It's a very small company, but quite well known at the same time in the audiophile world. And again, their products are not as popular because they're a lot harder to manage. The heat generated by these amplifiers is substantial. You're not going to be comfortable if you don't install something custom made to offset that. So that's a fact. The payoff is phenomenal sound. If you can think of keeping the circuit simple, as in straight wired from origin to end, straight wire, that's kind of the technology here. There's very little left and rights, up and downs components within the each of the amplifiers. It's as simple a circuit as it can get. So there's less sonic influences within the component. The intent is to go in, go out the same. That's why I chose these. And of course, I've had to install dedicated air conditioning over and above what the room had to specifically address this. You don't want them all the time because you need them when they're on, and you want a quiet unit. And these types of unit are the way to go. So back to the preamp. It is also tube loaded, analog, and very simple. In this audio file, in the audio file, we have very simple preamps. It's a volume control. That's all you get to do. There is no treble, middle, or bass to deal with because that's not how reference level equipment works. It actually delivers to you what the mixer at the end of the session of the musicians and the record session was here. So in the preamp, it's also tubed, and it's part of the same company, so they were made to work together. It's very simple in the audio file. We don't get complicated controls. In the preamp, all you get to control is the volume. There's 3 more knobs. I'll tell you what they are. This one is balance, left and right. All right. And then this one is to basically decide whether it's a CD, auxiliary, or the turntable, just selector. And this is the on and off switch. That's it. I remember the first time I bought a high-end audio, it was a Plinius system. And then when I got it, I saw no controls. There were 2 knobs. I called my dealer. I said, "There's no bass and treble on this thing. What happened?" And he goes, "What are you talking about? We don't. There is no treble and bass control in high-end audio." I learned pretty quickly, and it freaked me out. I said, "What are you talking about? You can't adjust?" Nope. It's supposed to deliver. It's supposed to deliver to you what the mixer at the end of the session and the musicians did. That's why mixing is so important in the music business. So that's the intention, and there shouldn't be anything else left to play with after the master recording tapes. So that's the spirit why there is no such thing. Not to mention, of course, the fact that these controls add their sonic imprint. Whether they're activated or not, it's an extra circuitry that's not there for real use. So we eliminate. And remember, these are all about the simplicity of the circuitry to deliver authentic sound end to end. So the preamp basically reads the information, the music. It's analog, so it's taking analog information and sending that signal to the power amps, which amplify it to send to the speakers. Let's talk about the power amps for a minute. Again, these are Joule-Electras, and they're quite unusual. That's quite a handful, actually. So first of all, we know they get hot, right? We talked about that, but they get very hot. In fact, if they were on, I would be a little bit uncomfortable, possibly. The lights don't help either, but I did install a custom cooler over and above what came in the pool house. So, Joule-Electra tubes, and this amp you don't turn on. There is no on and off switch. There's a potentiometer that you basically turn from 0 to 128, which is a temperature and a voltage, and you wait for it to warm up. I'm going to do it now. The tube might start to glow in a minute or two. I don't know if you'll be able to pick that up in the camera, but you'll see. Basically, we're heating up the tubes now to a certain specified number, the temperature, the voltage, by the manufacturer. Same thing on the other side. So it takes a couple of minutes. As with all tubes, tubes deliver their maximum sonic capability when they're really hot and warmed. And that's when all the frequencies are, I call it, represented. While on the way up, on the way to warming up, the brights might be higher than the lows and whatever. It's a little bit of a mixed salad until everybody settles in and the full temperature takes over. And now they deliver the full range. balanced. So the first song may not be as good as the second, or the first minute of the first song may not be as good as the last 2 minutes of a song. But in fact, in guitar amplifiers, that takes 15 minutes sometimes to get the maximum compared to this. I'm also a collector, tube collector, and I use new old stock NOS tubes made in America, Britain, and Holland. From the 50s and 60s. I have a very large personal collection. We'll get into that perhaps at another episode. But I'm very familiar with tubes and have worked with them for 25 years. And that's why I love them. So this is designed to have the most minimalist circuitry possible using tube technology. And as we said earlier, the reason this type of design is not as popular as others, it's not that practical. It's made for the devoted and interested and more esoteric, if you want. These are hand-built by a person. And unfortunately, that person is no longer with us, but his legacy lives on. There's several other companies that do this kind of thing, OTL. Again, it's because the consumers need to realize what's involved in working with that, and which is basically you need ventilation and a good space that diffuses heat. So, with that, I think we have completed our system, the power amplification system between the preamp and the power amps, and I'm going to sign off now on this episode, and my name is Patrick Thibian, and I look forward to the next episode as we continue to explore my audiophile system.